Good evening, I'm Jack Fujii and welcome to the 16th and last session of Agriculture 194P for this spring semester. Focus on Agriculture is a one-credit class offered by the College of Agriculture at the University of Hawaii at Hilo. And we come to you live every Thursday evening, but this will be our last evening for the semester at 8 to 8:30 p.m. I'd just like to mention that we will be on again during the fall semester, and we will be going to have cooking again. So it'll be Agriculture 194Q, and if you're interested in registering, please let us know and I'll give you our address a little later on. We hope that you'll stay tuned this evening. We are featuring the people in the banana industry here in the Big Island, and as you know, Hawaii is probably the center for banana growing in the United States. So we have a very interesting presentation for you. We are coming to you live this evening from the television studios located in the Mookini Library here on the University of Hawaii at Hilo campus. And at approximately 8 p.m., those of you in the viewing audience, and of course those of you here in the studio, can ask questions of our guest speaker. Before we go on, I have a few announcements, and if I may have the Elmo, I'd just like to mention that the play Oklahoma will be on at Hilo High School, and Oklahoma is have some real agriculture background. It was a big battle between the ranchers and the farmers, so if you're interested in watching Oklahoma, it's done by the performing arts people at Hilo High School on May 8th, 9th, 15th, and 16th at 7:30 p.m. and May the 10th at 2 p.m. at the Hilo High School auditorium. So I hope all of you go and see that. Also, I'd like to mention that since this is the last session, I would appreciate all of you, those of you that are taking the course on television, that all the notes are due in my office by May 15th. I hope they're in before May 15th because that's a Friday, and the grades have to go in on the 18th, which is the following Monday. So if you get it into me on the 15th, I'm going to have to work on the weekend. So let's get it in before May 15th. Send your notes into the College of Agriculture, 200 West Kawili Street, Hilo, Hawaii. Also, I'd like to mention that on the 16th of May, that's Saturday, from 9 to 11 a.m. here at the University of Hawaii at Hilo Campus Center, the University of Hawaii at Hilo and the Center for Asia-Pacific Exchange will have its Asian lecture. We will be featuring Dr. Dean Neubauer, and he'll be talking about these two lecture notes called Tiger, Tiger, the Fate of the Asian Tiger in a World of Maturing Globalization. And also his second lecture is the old joke, where does the elephant sit in the room? And the answer is wherever she wants to. So this lecture is free. The only thing that you have to do is to register for the lecture series, and if you're interested, please write us at the College of Agriculture for the registration form, or you can register at the desk, okay? Before we go on, I'd just like to mention again that we are having the banana industry with us this evening. And between our three speakers, we have over 70 years of experience in the banana growing industry. So at this time, I'd like to introduce my guest speakers. First of all, we have Richard Ha. Richard Ha is the owner of the Keao Banana Plantation, and he's been in the banana industry for 25 years. And he's also been the past president of the Big Island Banana Growers Industry Association, and also the past president and secretary of the State Banana Industry Association. And joining Richard, we have Delan Perry, or Rusty we call him, Rusty Perry. Rusty has about 28 years of experience not only in the banana industry, but he also grows papaya. His company name is Kapoho Grown, and he's also the current president of the Big Island Banana Growers Industry Association, and he's also the treasurer of the State Banana Industry Association. And joining Rusty, we have Lynn Richardson of the Valerie Banana Company in Ola'a here on the Big Island. And he's also the past president and secretary of the Big Island Banana Growers Industry Association, and also past president and secretary of the State Banana Industry Association. So at this time, it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you Richard Ha. So Richard, why don't you come in and take over?
Thank you, Jack. This evening I'll be talking to you folks from wearing several hats. One will be as HBIA president, which is the Hawaii Banana Industry Association, and I'll be talking about the potential for export of Williams bananas, because we're pretty close to getting the crop cleared for export. And the second thing I'm going to be talking about is the Pesticide Environmental Stewardship Program, which is a partnership with the EPA. And the Hawaii Banana Industry Association just became a partner with the EPA. And then I'll go on to talk about growing bananas in on the Big Island as a banana grower. And so, first of all, I'll talk to you folks about, can I have the Elmo, please? About the characteristics of banana growing. We'll be, this chart is on the monthly Cavendish production for the state of Hawaii. And it shows the 1996, 1997, and until March this year, the amount of production. What you'll notice is that the first 6 months of the year, the production is low. And it's related to season. And the second half of the year, the production goes up, and it's as a result of summer weather. The significance about this graph is that we and our main competitors are located north of the equator, so their seasonal patterns of production and our seasonal pattern of productions are similar. Our banana competitors are located north of the equator in Central America. And we also have competitors from summer fruit, which is also located north of the equator. So the effect of this is that when our production is high, all our competitors' production is also high. And when our production is low, our competitors' production is low as well. The next graph shows price. And if you look at this graph, you'll notice that 1996 and 1997 is quite different. 1996 is flat. 1997, it shows a peak, a spike in March, then it drops off for the rest of the year starting in June and July. And the reason for that is during 1996, banana farmers were getting pretty much an average price all year round. And in 1997, banana farmers were getting a price related to the Los Angeles market price. And I think that's probably the most direct way to price bananas. In 1998, if you look at the graph, there's a BE that represents break even. Ken Fleming, in his study on banana economics of farming bananas, thought that 30 cents a pound was nearly break even for most banana farmers. So I drew a little line across, a dotted line across there to show where the break even point is. So if you take the 1997 graph, you'll see that the first half of the year, the prices were higher than break even. And then the second half of the year, it's about break even or less. In 1998, the prices for the first 3 months did not spike as high as in 1997. And the prospects are that the prices will be somewhat lower than last year. So that's not good news for banana farmers. And as you expect, prices run opposite to production. So during the winter when production is short, the prices are high. During the summer and the second half of the year when it's production is high, the prices are low. Now, the question is, can we, what is the prospects for exporting Cavendish bananas for our industry? And the thing to remember is that we would have to then pay the transportation costs from Hawaii to the West Coast, which is about 6 cents a pound, 5 cents a pound. So if we follow 1997's price, we'd be way below break even during the last half of the year. Also, in order to get to Los Angeles, we would have to harvest our bananas thinner earlier so that you can travel without spontaneously ripening. So we would lose our freshness advantage. And we think that our taste advantages is related to the freshness of the fruit that we produce because we're so close to the market. And there's another thing. There is no assurance that we will receive first-tier pricing because there's a two-tier market for bananas on the U.S. mainland. The top tier is the well-known brands, Chiquita, Del Monte, and Dole. And the second tier commands about $2 a box less or 5 cents a pound less. So add that to the freight cost, then you're operating below break even, losing money for the second half of the year. Another thing is top tier brands commonly discard 15% of their harvest to get this beautiful looking fruit. Banana farmers locally cannot afford to throw in more than 5%. There's another risk in exporting Cavendish bananas, and that is imported Central American fruit uses Dursban impregnated banana bags. And what that does is it gives them an extra measure of safety to prevent insects, quarantine insects coming into the U.S. market. The Hawaiian banana industry is not allowed to use that. It's not cleared for us to use. So we'd be assuming a little bit more of a risk that some bug might find its way into the pack and end up on the West Coast where we would lose the whole shipment. A similar situation happened to the avocado industry. The Shawul avocado was cleared for export, and everybody geared up. They planted, they made a big packing plant, and they started producing. And the first few shipments was fine. But somewhere down the road, they found some fruit fly larvae in the fruit. And what happened was it basically shut down the industry. So there are a lot of risks for us when we consider exporting Cavendish bananas. There's probably a market for apple bananas. And Mike Tering, our past president, was a driving force behind us getting export clearance for Hawaiian bananas. He was really thinking, and most of us were thinking, that there is a niche market for apple bananas. Because the demand is good, we probably could ship by air. So anyway, what I think and what most of us that have been in the industry for a long time believe is that exporting Cavendish bananas is not a viable alternative for us for the long term. Probably what we believe we should be doing is having good communication with all the banana producers and trying to make sure that our supply does not exceed what the demand is within the state. Because once we exceed that, there's no place to go with the fruit. And on the mainland, the prices drop so low sometimes that a banana farmer would lose more money by harvesting the fruit than by not harvesting at all if he intended to ship to the U.S. mainland. Okay, so that's what I wanted to say about the possibility of exporting Cavendish. Now, the second topic is the Hawaii banana industry became a partner with the EPA in their pesticide environmental stewardship program. And I'd like to give you a little bit of history behind this program. Back in 1994, the EPA, USDA, and the FDA pledged to Congress to have 75% of the U.S. agricultural acreage under IPM by the year 2000. IPM stands for Integrated Pest Management. And basically what that is farmers are encouraged to use all the different methods that they can, such as forecasting, planting at different spacing, biologicals, friendly chemicals, and those sorts of things to farm rather than just be on a regular program throwing fertilizer or using chemicals on a calendar basis. So the Pesticide Environmental Stewardship Program is a result of that pledge by the EPA and USDA and FDA to have 75% of the U.S. ag acreage under IPM by the year 2000. Organizations, agricultural organizations with a commitment to pesticide use and risk reduction are eligible to join. The goal of this program is to develop chemical risk usage reduction strategies that include reliance on biological pesticides and other approaches, as I mentioned. The responsibilities of membership and guiding principles are, it is strictly voluntary, and so the Hawaii Banana Industry Association became a partner. We agreed to develop and implement a formal strategy to reduce risk and use of pesticides. And we'll be working with Ron Mao from the College of Tropical Agriculture and Human Resources at UH Manoa. So we'll be working with him to develop a formal strategy to submit to the EPA. Basically, it will involve reducing the risk and usage of the hottest chemicals. For the banana industry, generally the hottest chemicals are the nematicides. And actually, as an industry, we've made pretty good progress so far, because I believe maybe 95% of the usage of nematicides have stopped over the last several years. And that is due to various strategies that banana farmers have used to get clean seed. Some banana farmers peel the banana corn before planting, and that assures that there's no nematodes on the plants. Other banana farmers use tissue culture planting material. Some of the strategies that farmers use for reducing chemicals are mowing instead of spraying for weed control. And we've done taking off the flowers on the bananas at the same time we put the bags on, and that allows us to cut down the damage from the sugarcane bud moth. One thing to remember is that the Hawaii banana industry cannot use all the chemicals that are allowed in foreign countries. Consequently, Hawaii banana growers have a harder time getting the fruit to look as perfect as the imported bananas do. To the extent that the farmers are able to do so, it took a lot of ingenuity and hard work. And then along this line, the Hawaii banana growers has a heightened awareness of food safety concerns. Everybody's pretty much aware of the news about bacteria contamination of foods, from meats to produce and stuff like that. Well, it is standard practice for local growers to utilize chlorination in their packing houses. Generally, we use 100 parts per million of chlorine. Public swimming pools use 3 parts per million. While drinking water, excuse me, drinking water is chlorinated to 2 parts per million. And at that rate, all harmful organisms are killed. And as I said, the packing water is about 100 parts per million. Can I have the Elmo, please? This is a picture of my grandson, and it says, I don't know if you can read it, but it says, gecko shirt, sunglasses, tattoo on your arms, and a good banana. What else do you need? But the point of the matter is that we all have children and grandchildren, and we're interested in being environmentally responsible and be careful with what we put on the fruit. Okay, now to recap what I said about, I'm going back to the original topic, which is exporting Cavendish bananas. We don't think it's very promising because the Los Angeles market prices are frequently so low that it would not pay to harvest Hawaiian banana and transport to the mainland at many times during the peak season. We would lose the freshness advantage that we enjoy here in Hawaii when we have to ship to the mainland. And because we can't use Dursban impregnated bags, we would take a little bit more of a risk that some bug that is not allowed on the mainland will get through and jeopardize the whole industry. Okay, so that's all I have as far as the state Hawaii Banana Industry Association is concerned. I'm going to now talk about farming, banana farming from a Big Island banana grower point of view. I'm going to talk about the history of our farm as it developed, because that's, as I go along, I can explain what the different things we came up and how we were able to solve various problems. So back in 1975, after I graduated from college, finally, my dad asked me to run our family chicken farm. So I did that, and after several months, we were searching around for what to do with the 25 acres that was not in production. There was 15 acres of chickens and 25 acres of land that wasn't being used. So we just did the research, and we realized that there was about 6 million pounds of bananas that was imported into the state. So we decided, gee, I think we can do this. We've got the land, we've got the chicken manure. If we had the plants, we could do this. So what we did was we traded chicken manure for starts. And then we started off with 1 acre, and then eventually 2, and then after several years, 25 acres. At that farm, the significant thing about it was that we started the first banana ripening room on the Big Island there. And so we were able to sell bananas in an orderly way to the supermarkets, because they required ripe bananas on the shelves at all times. After spending several years at Waikeuka on a 25-acre parcel, we developed that parcel, and it was a corporation of my brothers and myself. I moved to Kapoho, and what we were doing was we wanted to produce more bananas, and we were looking for land, and at that time there was really not much land available because everything was in sugar. All the good land was in sugar. So the 60-acre parcel we got in Kapoho was basically covered with ash, volcanic ash. There was no soil there. But we really didn't know the difference. We just started in bananas, had only several years of experience, and we built it. And so we built a packing house that was different from the first packing house because it was a little bit bigger. So we incorporated some techniques that was more suitable for a larger operation. But it was still a hand operation. We fertilized by hand. Everything was by hand, except we had flatbed trucks driving down the rows maybe 100 feet apart. That's how far the harvesters had to carry the bunches. Several years went by. Actually, in 1984, when Puna Sugar closed down, we acquired 200 acres on shipment property in Kea'au. So we got closer to the docks, and we actually got a little bit of soil. But when you get a little bit more soil, you get a little bit more grass. So we were learning how to control grass, and it was a challenge. Actually, never saw more grass in our lives compared to Kapoho. At that time, we operated with tractors. The first tractor we bought, we were amazed how much labor it saved. Eventually, we went to four-wheelers to harvest because we learned that, gee, carrying the bunches for 100 feet was kind of a tough job for everybody, especially when the volume was increasing. So we went to four-wheelers so that we could drive right up to the bunch, and that helped us a lot. And while in Kea'au, we opened up a tissue culture lab because we started to learn that bananas came with nematodes. When you dig it out of the ground, almost every place was infested with nematodes. And some of the farmers here learned early on, you know, with ourselves included, that nematodes are a big problem. The bananas all fall down, and you lose money, and you can't keep the field in operation very, very long. For one thing, the chemicals were real hot, and it was very expensive, and it was not that effective. One of the, oh, can I have the Elmo, please? One of the things we did at Kea'au was develop a tissue culture lab, and this picture is a picture of some tissue cultured plants that we grew in our lab. I actually took a tissue culture class from Mike Tanabe here at the university, and what we did was we started doing tissue culture plants in our back bedroom, and that didn't work out too good because all the plants got contaminated. I think it was the dog hairs and stuff. I'm not really sure, but but anyway, so we opened up a better lab, and it worked pretty good because now we were able to get clean seeds, and eventually we were able to cut out the use of nematicides. Okay. Also, when we were in Kea'au, we in 1994 we saw an article in the World Watch magazine, and that article described a program by the Rainforest Alliance, and it was called the Smart Banana Program, and they were offering certification to banana farms in Central America that would follow certain environmentally friendly guidelines. And so I called them up, and I asked them for the protocol. So when they sent it to me, we realized, gee, we did most of this stuff already. So I asked them if they would come and check out our operation. And so can I have the Elmo again, please? This picture is of Lynn Corrales and Javier Baltodano. They're both representatives of the Rainforest Alliance. They came from Costa Rica to inspect our farm, and they were really, really sharp banana people. And this is a picture of Roy Blackshear in W.H. Shipman's office. Can you change the next one, please? And after they came, and several months went by, and they took the report back and they discussed it in Costa Rica, they decided that we would be certified. And so Kate Heaton, who was in charge of the program out of New York, came to visit our farm to give us the official certification, and that's a picture of Kate. Another innovation that we did in KL was refrigerated shipments. We built some reefer boxes on the farm, and as soon as we packed it, we put it in the reefers. And then from there, we put it in refrigerated containers and sent it off to Oahu. And the next, Elmo, please, yeah. This is a picture of them unloading a reefer and getting it ready to ship via Young Brothers. Okay. Now, the last thing I wanted to talk about is why we chose to grow bananas on the east side of the Big Island. And there are three things, basically, that got our attention. There was abundant good land available, abundant water, and the Hilo lifestyle is conducive to agricultural endeavors. So this is a picture of Tracy, my daughter, and this is one of 4 streams that run through the property. So there's a tremendous amount of water that falls on the land. And bananas need a lot of water, about 2,750,000 gallons annually to grow 1 acre of fruit. In East Hawaii, in a lot of the areas, we have more than 3 million gallons of water falling annually. So we have, for the most part, adequate amount of water just from rain. And the price of water is stable. It's always free. It falls out of the sky. And since we are committed, and all of us here, since we are committed to sustainable banana farming, we decided to plant it, in our case, we decided to plant it Pepikeo, where rainfall is abundant, rather than at a place where we would have to depend on subsidies to be able to produce bananas. On this side of the island, we also have a unique situation, and that is the soils. Even on Ke'au, Curtistown, Kapoho soils, is relatively forgiving. In other words, a farmer doesn't have to be exactly precise with his fertilizer application for it to get good availability to the plants. The soils are generally well drained and resist compaction. And for bananas, soil texture is probably the most important thing about good banana soil. And in particular, in Pepikeo, we decided to plant in Pepikeo because we first noticed as we were driving by that bananas were growing really good in people's backyards. So we noticed that right off the bat. And we drove around looking at that specifically because there was no commercial farms going. Then when we went to different places like Ka'u and Kohala and Oahu, we decided, gee, we better put it where the bananas really want to grow and where the water is free. At Pepikeo, we are also able to continue with our sustainable banana farming techniques. The Elmo will show that this is a mechanical weeder. It's mounted on the tractor, and it just pulls out the grass. And so where you see grass growing, we mow. So we don't use too much chemical to control weeds. Okay, next one. This next picture is showing us mowing the grass. So what we do is we have a clean strip, and we mow the rest. And part of the reason is because we need the traction, because it rains so much. And that was done about 2 years ago when we weren't really sure if it was going to work or not, whether we would be able to run the tractors in there, whether we could harvest. Those things, it wasn't clear. But at this point, everything's working fine. We've even been able to harvest under condition where there's been 5 inches of rain. Oh, okay, and so I'd like to conclude by mentioning a few things. One is both farms together, and banana farming uses so much water, as I mentioned. Both farms together, which KL banana is about 250 acres and Mauna Kea bananas is about 250 acres, uses about 1 billion gallons annually. And as I mentioned before, we get it all from rainfall. The next thing I wanted to say is that many families work on our banana farms, and there are many businesses, and a lot of people are affected that rely on our business. For example, fertilizer companies, tire companies, packing supply companies, people who sell equipment, supermarkets, people sell trucks and stuff like that. We also support nonprofits such as high schools and when they're doing the bazaars, etc., churches, Heart Association, Food Bank, running clubs, bicycle races. So my point is this: when you're buying local bananas, you'll find that you won't be paying any more than buying imported bananas. They're priced the same. But we believe you get better value because you'll be basically supporting the local industry, and you'll be getting fruit that's grown by people committed to sustainable agricultural growing practices. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Excuse me. Thank you, Richard. I'd like to tell you tonight about something I've been working on for the Hawaii Banana Industry Association, a new project. Most crops are pretty much the same. All your assets are outside. They're out in the rain, the wind, the sun, whatever happens to come down from the skies. A good business manager is always looking for ways to take some of the risk out of all that exposure. One of the best tools for that is insurance. We can carry fire, liability, hurricane, auto, health, other insurances, sometimes because we have to, and sometimes because a catastrophe doesn't wipe us out. These normally cover our bodies, our houses, our bank accounts. Insurance for those crops in the field have in the past been limited to the few major American crops such as soybeans, wheat, corn. But now the federal government wants to replace their disaster assistance programs with crop insurance for even smaller crops that have a much smaller dollar value, such as some of our Hawaiian crops. We're told that we can expect Congress to be eliminating some of these other disaster relief programs, which gave farmers just a small part of their losses, and in many cases we couldn't qualify for. There's a lot of natural problems that can affect bananas, such as strong winds, torrential rains, floods, droughts, viruses and other plant diseases, and insect pest outbreaks. With these thoughts in mind, the Hawaii banana industry has begun to look at developing a crop insurance program in partnership with the United States Department of Agriculture, and have requested that a pilot program be developed that will cover the major peril, wind. This is a good place to start in managing the risk of those fields that are in bananas. The other perils don't affect everybody in the state. Only wind is a statewide problem. We don't get floods in Puna. We don't get droughts where they have irrigation systems. Fungus is not a problem in places like Kula. Virus is not a problem yet in many areas and might be too expensive to insure in any case. We've met with an insurance management specialist from Sacramento, and our proposal just last week was favorably received. While there are some somewhat complicated formulas, the type of insurance that will work best for bananas is based on guaranteeing a payment if a yield is not achieved due to the peril covered by this policy, in this case wind. Yields would be based on each individual's records, which means that there would have to be good record keeping. If a participating farmer doesn't have good records, yield would be based on a % of the county average. The biggest problem we have with bananas is they are harvested all year round one of those tropical crops they're not familiar with. And what we've been seeking is a way to divide the year up so losses don't have to wait a year to be covered. The risks we expect to cover under this program will be wind, volcano, and earthquake. The product covered would be hanging banana bunches, not trees, because they're easy to count. Insurance will probably be available at several different levels. A catastrophic base level insurance will be available at $50 per farm. That would require about a 50% loss to qualify and in return about 60% of the market value. A farmer may choose to buy up, paying additional premiums for additional coverages up to 100% of the market price and starting at 25% of a loss of bunches. This premium calculation is what takes a while to arrive at and would be based on the banana industry costs of production, yields, and the likelihood of being damaged by windstorms in the course of a year. There may be a premium discount for windbreaks. We're hopeful that we can have a program to offer by mid-1999. At a premium price, it will be affordable, yet allow a farmer to reduce the risk of being put out of business by a windstorm. Unfortunately, 100% losses will never be covered. I would suggest to growers in other crops to start this program going. One of the nice things about it is individuals will always have the right to refuse a policy or opt for the $50 catastrophic policy. But if you want to be able to manage your major risks of your crop, this federally subsidized crop insurance program may work for you too. That's my program. Thanks. We now have Lynn.
Thanks, Rusty. Well, you've all heard the good news. I've got a bit of the dark side to offer tonight. My subject is going to be primarily the diseases in banana, and we're going to be focusing on the quarantine that's currently in place in Kona. What we have in Kona is an outbreak of a virus disease that has existed in Asia and the South Pacific below the equator for a long time. In 1989, it was seen in Honolulu for the first time, and after investigation, it was determined that it had been there probably for several years because it turned out to be rather widespread. It is now out of control on Oahu and is being managed on individual farms, but as far as cleaning up the entire island, it is not an option at this point. We were unlucky to find this same disease, virus disease, in Kailua Kona a little over 2 years ago. And the banana bungee top virus scared the pants off of us when we first heard it was on our island. Since then, we've determined that it is confined to the Kailua Kona area, and we are hoping that to keep it contained there until it can be eradicated. The Department of Agriculture is doing an excellent job in searching and destroying missions, but when you look at the hills up behind Kailua Kona in the Holualoa area, it's pretty frightening how many little banana patches there are to investigate. And just recently I was over there and was impressed with, how remote some of the bananas are. You go in these places and you say, oh, there's no bananas in there, and you go down around a corner and here's a mat of bananas that's just raging with symptoms. And these guys are over there 5 days a week in the hot sun searching and destroying these plants out, and hopefully if they can find them all, then the people in the Kailua Kona area will be able to grow bananas without worrying about this disease. Our worry on the east side, where most of the industry is located, is that we will not be able to contain it over there and eradicate it, and eventually we'll have to deal with it over here, which would make it almost non-profitable to grow bananas and having to deal with that. I've got a little bit of video I'd like to start up, so if we can go ahead and roll that, and I'll just kind of narrate the video as it goes by. This first shot here is a plant that is a cooking banana, and it was infected with the fusarial wilt we used to call Panama wilt. The main reason I've got a shot of this is I want to point out the difference. The fusarial wilt went through the state in the 1950s and the early 1960s and destroyed the industry. Since then, we've come out with cultivars that are not subject to that disease. This is a cross-section of a banana plant. showing fusarial wilt disease. This is the way if your plants are sick and you chop through it and you see this, you've got it. It primarily affects the blue field and the cooking varieties. We primarily grow Williams bananas, and so we do not have to worry about this disease at this point in time. So this is fusarial wilt, Panama disease. It is not the virus disease. There has been confusion in the past, and I have been asked many questions. This is a shot of Cavendish bananas, the Williams variety. This is what most of us are growing on a large scale, and it's the common banana that you see in the market, both in Hawaii and across the mainland. I have to get a dog shot in there somewhere. But the next shot you're going to see is aphids being worked by ants. The ants are moving the aphids around. This is a severely infected plant, and as the camera moves away later, you'll be able to see the degree of infection. These aphids feed on an infected plant, move to another plant, feed on it, and pass along the disease. It is not spread by tools or footwear or soil or anything. Other than the aphids, the only way to spread this disease is by moving infected plants. This is a young plant that is severely infected. These are all shot in Kailua Kona. It is dwarfed. You can see the leaves are not expanding upward anymore. They're all coming out of the same level, hence the name bunchy top. Now that's about the most classic symptoms you're ever going to see. And these plants were destroyed soon after this video was taken. Now this is an example of what you don't want to do. You don't want to dig this tree up and say, hey, this looks like a great tree, I want to take it home. Well, stop. Do not take this tree home. There is a quarantine in Kailua Kona against moving banana plants out of the area. The reason is we want to get rid of this stinking disease. There are signs posted in 3 areas, all 3 entrances and exits in the Kailua Kona area. Fruit, no problem. You can move the fruit out of the area. But the disease well, anyway. This is a shot of the sign. This is the Palani Road sign. If you're coming down into Kailua Kona, it tells you that you're entering the quarantine area. There's also a sign up near the airport on the Kahumanu Highway, and there's a sign down in the Captain Cook area on the main highway there. And this is a shot of Mauna Kea. We have a natural buffer to protect us on the east side and keep the aphids from moving out of the Kailua Kona area and spreading this disease. But if that keiki went into that truck and that truck left Kailua Kona, drove over East Hawaii, then everything else we're doing would be null and void, because then we would have the disease basically out of the cage that we have it in right now. So this is a shot of a banana orchard in East Hawaii, down in the Ola'a or Keau area. And this is what we call a dwarf Brazilian variety. And this is what we're trying to protect. There's a lot of opportunity for dwarf Brazilian production, because if we can get this export clearance, which looks very favorable at this point, we may have an exportable product. So once again, these are okay. You can take these anywhere you want. But as far as the plants go, no dice. You got to leave them in Kailua Kona. And the virus has never been actually eradicated anywhere. Hawaii has the dubious honor of being the first place in the Western Hemisphere to host the virus. So if we can get rid of this virus, it'll be a first. So we're going to need the public's cooperation, because most of the time these diseases are spread by unsuspecting, innocent homeowners who just merely want to pass along a nice variety of banana. East Hawaii has lots of good, healthy banana keikis. There are plant stores. The Cooperative Extension Service offers information to growers or homeowners, prospective farmers. If you're looking for plants, they'll connect you up with farmers. There's a lot of plants in East Hawaii. We don't need to bring any over from Kailua. Hopefully, if we can clean up the disease in Kailua, then the people in Kailua Kona will be able to plant again freely without worrying. But if it gets out of Kailua Kona, then the whole island's pretty much going to go down to the tubes as far as banana growing go. And if you know anybody from Guam, ask them. They have such a huge bunchy top problem that they can hardly even grow them anywhere on the island. That pretty much wraps up my topic tonight. We'll be here for some time now to answer questions. If anybody has any questions about the virus, I'd be happy to answer them. And at this point, I'd like to turn it back over to Jack. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lynn. For those of you who are watching for the first time, this is our last show for the semester. And I'd like to remind all of you to please send in your lecture notes to me, and I hope that you get them in to me before next Friday. Not this coming Friday, but next Friday. This evening we're featuring the banana industry. We have with us Richard Ha, who's the owner of Keao Banana Plantation. We also have with us Delan Rusty Perry, owner of Kapoho Grown. He grows both bananas and papayas. And of course, Lynn Richardson, who just got through speaking, and he owns the Valerie Banana Company in Ola'a. That's in the Keao, Curtistown area of the Big Island. Since we are coming to you live, we are now open to question and answers, and the phone numbers are on the screen. The numbers are 974-7726, 974-7727. And of course, those of you on the outer islands of Oahu and Kauai, you can call us collect at 961-9027. And between the three banana growers that we have here, we have over 70 years of experience in growing bananas. So if any one of you at home or here in the studio audience would like to know anything about growing bananas, please give us a call. And while we're waiting for the callers to call in, Richard, you were mentioning Cavendish bananas, and I think there's a short shot of the Cavendish bananas on Lynn's video. What do you mean by Cavendish bananas, Richard?
Cavendish bananas are Williams, Valerie, and the bananas that you commonly see in the supermarket. That's not the apple bananas. Those are the most common varieties sold.
And you've got some apple bananas right in front of you, right? Maybe you can hold it up and show the viewers.
These are apple bananas. They're characterized by shorter fingers and probably more stout. The skin is more resistant to damage than the Cavendish bananas, and they're probably a little bit more tart. Yeah.
Okay. We have a caller, I understand, so will the first caller let us know where you're calling from, and go ahead with the question, please.
Calling from Hilo. Hello.
Yes, go ahead.
Calling from Hilo.
Yes.
Will the prices of our local banana be a little less than the imported, or will they still be the same as the imported?
Richard, do you want to tackle that one?
Yeah, sure. The Cavendish bananas, locally grown bananas are generally the same price as the imported bananas. The local bananas are generally tagged, prices are generally tagged to the LA market price plus freight. So generally it's the same price, maybe less during sales.
Does that answer the question from
Well,
Hilo?
of course, the question being, will the local people get a break because of local bananas on prices?
Can you answer that? Will the local people get a break on the price because of local bananas?
Well, I don't know if you got a chance to look at the graph real carefully. The price of bananas last year was at break even or below break even for local fruit, and that's with the prices you get in the supermarket. The price that you saw on that graph is what the farmers get, and generally if the farmer gets about 30 cents a pound, he's breaking even or losing money.
I see. So it still costs about the same to grow it here than it is to bring it in.
Yeah, pretty much so, because we have to bring all the chemicals, and our cost of labor is higher than it is in Central America.
Okay, thank you.
And also another advantage of purchasing local bananas is they're more eco-friendly, and probably we use less chemicals in the production of local bananas. Is that correct? Richard?
That is true.
Okay, so you know, these days when you are what you eat, and so you want to make sure that you eat agricultural produce that are grown with less pesticides and things like that, so that should be a great concern to you. And local bananas are grown with less pesticides as the Central American bananas. Is that correct, Richard?
That is correct.
So when you see these other brands, so how do you tell the difference between local bananas and the other bananas from the mainland, Richard?
Well, Dole, Del Monte, and Chiquita are not grown locally.
So
And
those bananas will have that little label on the bananas?
That's right.
So local bananas will have either, what are some of the labels that some of our local bananas have?
Valerie banana is one.
Okay.
Kale banana.
Okay.
Rusty, do you have your own sticker on?
Wailea.
Wailea. Wailea is another. Generally, you'll find somewhere on the sticker either grown in Hawaii or a Hawaiian name or something like that.
Or do you also have that the State Department of Agriculture little Hawaii grown label on the bananas?
Some people have that little flower, the Island Fresh flower.
Or Island
Yes.
Fresh, yes. Okay, so there is an advantage to purchasing local bananas. We do have another caller. Will the next caller let us know where you're calling from and
Hello.
go ahead with the question? Go ahead. Hello, you're on the air. Hello, you're on the air.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Hello?
Go ahead and ask your question. You're on the air. We hear you.
Question is there a pineapple banana or a papaya banana? And if not, could it be grown someday here in Hawaii?
What do you mean by a papaya banana or a pineapple banana? You mean a cross between?
Yes, a cross to have the flavor of a banana and pineapple, or the flavor of a papaya and a banana.
Okay.
Which would be unique probably in the world market.
Okay, does anyone want to tackle that here? Rusty?
Maybe in a fruit salad. There's no varieties I'm familiar with that have those kind of flavors.
And there's probably no researchers, at least in the state of Hawaii at the university, that's working on such a cross, correct, Rusty?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay, does that answer the question?
Well, I just think that we're looking for new products to export here in Hawaii. It would be a completely new product. I think that would be very marketable throughout the world.
I think there's a good possibility now because there's a lot of high technology going on these days where you can grow the bananas in tissue culture, and once you get the plant in tissue culture, when you grow the callus tissue, which is undifferentiated banana tissues, then if you can isolate the papaya flavor gene from the papaya, then you can get that and possibly shoot it into the callus tissue, and you may be able to get a banana with papaya flavor, but that's probably down the road. I think right now what they're working on is a transgenic variety of papaya that is, or not papaya, but banana that is resistant to bunchy top. And I think that is more important to the banana industry at the present time because there is a threat of the bunchy top disease coming in, the virus coming to this side of the island where we grow most of the bananas in the entire state of Hawaii and also throughout the United States.
Well, just recently, Hawaii has, I think with the virus with the papaya, they have solved that.
Exactly.
So if they can solve that, why can't we make these different flavor bananas, be the pushing force that have, in other words, that Hawaii has done it first. and capitalize on the market.
Well, I think what has to be done is that the researchers have to isolate the gene that produces the flavor of the papaya, and there may be several genes involved. So what you have to do is isolate those genes, and then once you've got the genes isolated, then you've got to be able to impregnate that into the papaya or the banana plant in some way. And if that can be done, well, we may have it, but I don't think any researchers are doing that at the present time. They're working real hard to get the transgenic banana, which is resistant to the bunchy top virus, however. And that is an ongoing process, and they tell me they're almost there. It may take another 3 or 4 years before they can get such a plant, banana plant, available.
Well, I think as a taxpayer here in the state of Hawaii, we're trying to produce new products, and I just think that Hawaii is just laying back here with all the talent that they have today in chemistry, etc., that we're just not using our talent here. We're just waiting for somebody else to come along, or somewhere else in the world, to produce products.
Well,
And then we start with our local chemist here, starting to improve on it. I think that's the wrong way. I think if we should be out there being number one and first on a few things instead of last on a few things, or making something better than what it is right now.
Well, you have an excellent point there.
I think, with new, I work for a corporation that's worldwide, and 30% of their increased sales in the last 5 years has been new products. And I just don't see it in here in Hawaii. I know people, we've got a lot of talent here. We're just laying back, not using our resources, and I think it's about time that we put a stick of dynamite under our people and start moving ahead in the 20th century coming up.
I've got to also remind you that the economic situation in the state of Hawaii is very bad, and they've been cutting the budget of the university drastically over the last 3 years, and it's got to a point where we have not been able to rehire faculty positions that have been vacated due to retirement here on the Big Island. We've had a fruit and nuts researcher that retired. We have not been able to replace him because of lack of funds. We have 2 animal science positions at Beaumont Research Station that have not been rehired because of lack of funds. We also have an ornamental person that retired recently, and we have not been able to rehire that person. So it takes a lot of money to do a lot of this type of research, and be assured that the researchers at Manoa are working on trying to get new products, especially in a lot of the ornamentals, and they are doing research to make these new products, but they don't come overnight. They take a lot of time. I think the transgenic banana or the papaya plant took about 5 or 6 years in order to get the seeds available today. So it takes a lot of time, and the researchers are working on new products and new varieties, new cultivars of orchids and anthuriums and things like that, so we can stay ahead of the game. And I think Lynn Richardson would like to say a few words about that. So Lynn, go ahead.
Yes. The transgenic banana is something that we're hopeful for, because primarily it's insurance for our industry for this disease that we're probably going to be finding either in the near or distant future. But as far as new products go, we have it right here. This is an apple banana, and if you go to the mainland, you can't find them, or they're really rare and they're really ugly. And we can grow really beautiful apple bananas here. And you talk about a new tasting banana, we already have it. This is it. It's the best one of the best tasting fruits in the world. So what we've been doing as an industry, with a lot of help from the Extension Service and the college and Department of Agriculture and the U.S. Department of Agriculture, as well as the state, is we've been doing studies on our farms with Dr. Jack Armstrong and his staff to determine that green bananas are not a host for fruit flies, so we can ship to the West Coast, because that's the only reason right now that we can't ship. So the work is done, the data is in Washington, our senators and congresspeople in Washington are following it, we're following it, and we're anticipating within 12 months being able to ship bananas, these apple bananas here into California, Washington, Oregon, and that's going to turn our small little basket industry that supplies the state of Hawaii with some of its bananas to an industry that could supply lots of bananas primarily as a specialty item, not trying to compete with Chiquita, but just as a whole other item altogether, because it is a better eating banana. And these apple bananas, pound for pound, have triple the vitamin C as a Cavendish banana. So we are here working on angles to get more product grown here, more product moved into the mainland. So we don't have the fruit-flavored banana concept yet, and I think that might be something that we'll study in the future, but we do have an angle that we're working on, so bear with us. Thank you.
Okay, I hope that answered the question for our last caller. We do have 2 callers on the line. Will the first caller let us know where you're calling from, and go ahead with the question, please.
I'm from Kurdistan.
Okay.
And in the early 80s, I had a commercial farm next door.
Mm-hmm.
And ever since then, I had a leaf problem where the leaves would die out and a bunch would fall off prematurely. And it's been a number of years since the farm has gone. But I'm kind of isolated. I'm wondering if there's a way of me controlling this fungus without spraying fungicides.
Okay, who'd like to tackle that one?
Well,
Lynn? Okay, Lynn. Maybe you might tell us what the disease problem is, and go ahead.
sure. The disease that you're talking about is called black leaf streak, or sometimes it's called black sigatoka, named after a place in Fiji where these diseases originated. Black sigatoka is virtually everywhere in the world. It's one of the most prevalent funguses known to man at this point. It can only be controlled through using a whole strategy, which involves some fungicide spraying as well as what we call detrashing or sanitation. Now, if you take out the fungicide spraying, you can still get a level of control by detrashing off the dead or dying leaves, because that lowers the inoculum or the spores of the fungus that will infect the young leaves. What you see in a banana plant is you'll see the older leaves infected. The younger leaves, as they're still rolled up in the middle of the plant, as they open up, they're being infected by spores bouncing in rainfall and floating up to the younger leaves. So by cutting the old leaves off the plant, you'll save yourself a lot of grief that way. The other thing is to make sure the plant has plenty of sunshine, that you don't have your bananas too crowded together. We prune our bananas. Every large tree is about 5 to 6 feet from the next large tree, with only one daughter or keiki plant on that tree. And through fertilization, good spacing in the field, detrashing, you can even remove the trash completely out of the field. All of those things will contribute to it, but there's no way to actually get rid of the disease. Commercial farms do support a large population of the spores, but you can look at any isolated banana plant in this island and find the disease. So it finds every plant at some point.
Does that answer the question for the caller in Kurdistan?
Okay, thank you.
And what about the apple bananas? Is the apple banana resistant to that disease?
Slightly more than the Cavendish. It's a slightly stronger plant. The problem with the apple banana is it takes 3 or 4 more weeks to mature. So the leaves do last a little bit longer, since the bunch takes longer to mature, you can still find yourself in a situation where you're harvesting without leaves. The potassium levels of the fertilizer are real key to leaf life. If your potassium levels are low, you will you can have premature leaf death even without the presence of the fungus. So apple bananas are tough. The primary reason that we consider them tough is because they're really, resistant to wind damage. As far as the disease goes, they're fairly similar.
Okay, thank you, Lynn. We have 3 callers, so will the first caller let us know where you're calling from and go ahead with the question, please.
Hi, this is Norm from Pahoa.
Yes.
While waiting online, I think you might have answered one of my questions.
Okay.
I'd like to, you asked me if I wanted to grow some bananas. Well, I'd like something that sounds a little easier to grow than what they go through at home, just to throw something in the yard, and it sounds like that's the apple banana. The other thing I was interested in is what do you have to go through for treatment in order to be able to sell the bananas? Because, even if we come up with new fruits, like this other guy had talked about, we still have to treat it, and we have the extra cost from that. So what do we go through for the banana industry?
Okay, you're talking about post-harvest treatment. That's absolutely correct. We can grow all the bananas in the world, but if we've got all these insects and disease problems here on the Big Island and the state of Hawaii, the fruit flies in particular, and that's one of the primary reasons we can't ship a lot of these produce to the mainland. And I guess, do we have some kind of a treatment protocol for post-harvest treatment of bananas to ship to the mainland if and when we do start shipping? Richard?
The use of fungicides is common industry practice in Central America, and TBZ, thiabendazole, is pretty much the fungicides used. And it's pretty much a function of how long it's in transit. For example, if we grow it on the Big Island, we harvest it and ship tomorrow, we really don't need to use the fungicides. But if we're going from here to U.S. mainland, there's a good chance that we would have to use TBZ as well.
Okay, does that answer the question from Pahoa?
So that's the only kind of treatment you do on the fruits, or you would do? I mean,
If you're talking export,
export.
Yeah, we don't really know if that is the case. There might be certain times of the year we wouldn't have to do it, but as a general rule, I think that probably we would have to probably do that.
Because for other things, we've talked about things like hot dips or doing their radiation treatments and things like that.
It's not necessary for bananas.
Oh, that's good. Well, thank you.
Okay, well, thank you for calling from Pahoa on the Big Island here. We have another caller. Could you let us know where you're calling from and go ahead with the question, please?
Yes, I'm calling from Hilo, and we only grow bananas for our own use. But I would like to know, because bananas are high in potassium, what's the easy way of getting the potassium back in the ground?
Who wants to tackle?
In way of fertilizers or whatever.
Rusty? Go ahead, Rusty.
Okay. Basically, what we use for banana fertilizer, and that's what you're putting back in the ground. You're putting the leaves back in, you're putting the trunks back in, which is returning a lot of that material to the ground. But we use high potassium fertilizers such as 10-5-40 or 13-5-32 or various high potassium fertilizers is the way to do it. It does leach out with our rain to some extent.
Okay, so most of it goes back by just putting the leaves and stalks back.
That helps a lot in maintaining your potassium level.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for calling from Hilo. Will the next caller let us know where you're calling from? And, excuse me, go ahead with the question, please.
I'm calling from Kaneohe, Dr. Fujii. I have a question for Mr. Ha. I've been wrapping my Brazilian dwarf banana. Only reason why I wrap them is because I used to have a problem with it, black fungus. My banana get all black. Why do you wrap your bananas for?
We're primarily growing Williams bananas,
Yeah.
and we use the bags primarily for weathering. In other words, when the leaves are blown by the wind, it damages the fruit. And using the bags prevents a lot of that weathering. That's what helps us make the fruit look good in the stores. That's one reason. Another reason is that it causes a greenhouse effect underneath the bags, and you can harvest several days, maybe a week earlier than normal. And it also keeps out certain kind of insects, but in some cases it grows other insects. So That's pretty much the reasons we use the bags.
No. And you say you cut off your flowers because of that sugar cane bud moth or something.
Yeah, the sugarcane bud moth lays its eggs on the tip of the flowers, and then it hatches and crawls out and feeds on the bananas. So if you take the flowers off, you get rid of them. You just end up throwing all the babies on the ground.
Oh, okay. And another question. Brazilian dwarf or Brazilian banana. Isn't that really a misnomer? I mean, the apple banana is a misnomer by calling those Brazilian bananas, because the real apple banana has an apple smell and it's thin skin, and I think it got wiped out from that from the Panama wilt disease. But we still got them in Oahu, though. Because you can't get rid of any variety. Some of them eventually become resistant to certain diseases. And I think I saw in some handout written by one of the College of Agriculture people that he said that Brazilian, especially the Brazilian, is a misnomer, and apple banana for that particular variety is a misnomer. But since we've been calling them, well, we call it apple banana. But another thing too, I buy a lot of apple bananas, and only place that send us apple bananas is Honolulu. That's just as nice as your KL banana. Your Williams banana, they come from Molokai. Why don't you folks make you folks apple banana look nice too? Anyway, that's a personal request.
Okay, thank you, Harusu Joe. I'll have one of the speakers speak to that. Lynn, did you want to talk about that? Okay, go ahead, Lynn.
Well, the comment was about apple bananas, and we are trying to grow more apple bananas over here. So, well, I don't want to mention any commercial entities, on this program, but we do send 4,000 or 5,000 pounds a week into the Honolulu market, and I'm just one of maybe 4 or 5 apple banana farmers who are shipping on a regular basis. So, if you are looking for nice apple bananas, they're over there. As far as the names of all these bananas goes, you're absolutely right. The tall banana that's called apple banana is actually a Brazilian banana, and what we call dwarf apple is actually dwarf apple. It was brought from Brazil, I believe by Dr. Hamilton in around 1979 or 1980, and we tissue cultured it and divided it up to distribute it to the growers, and it's become the primary apple banana on farms on this island. On Oahu, there's still a lot of the tall Brazilian grown. And as far as the variety that is called apple banana in the rest of the world, it's something I'm just barely familiar with, but it does exist on Oahu, and it is a thin-skinned, real fragrant smelling fruit. I think the reason that this one, Brazilian, got called apple banana is just because it's got a tart flavor, and it was easy to say. So, and also, yeah, on bagging the Brazilian bananas, we bag the Brazilian bananas, and we also use an organic spray, which is a copper fungicide. We spray a real light mist on the apple bananas before we put the bags over them, and that really minimizes a lot of that black smudgy stuff. Like you can see it on these apple bananas here. They also have some bruises, but this area right here is got a lot of that on it. And if you use that copper compound, it helps a lot. It's available at any garden store. Those spots don't affect the eating quality of the fruit, but when you have a whole display in the supermarket, you like them to look as nice as you can because people tend to respond to that.
Okay,
Thanks.
Thank you, Lynn. We have 2 other callers. Will the next caller let us know where you're calling from, and go ahead with the question, please?
Yes, I'm calling from Kona.
Yes.
And I want to know precisely when is the right time to harvest the stalk of bananas. How is that decided?
Okay, who wants to tackle that? Richard, okay, when do you harvest the bananas for the homeowners?
First, I can tell you what we do, and then we bag all the bananas on the farm every week. So every week we put on a different colored ribbon. And so when we're ready to harvest, we'll harvest it in sequence. And basically, it goes like this. During the winter, it takes up to 16 weeks to harvest from the time you bag it, and during the summer, it takes from 11 to 12 weeks. Now, when you're at home and you're trying to decide when to harvest, if you're talking about a Williams bananas, probably the best bet is to make it go as close to ripen as possible, because it does not keep very well. It doesn't ripen naturally very well. One strategy you might want to do is bananas ripen from the top, the big largest hand first, and progress down the bunch. And if the tree is short enough, you can get up there and cut one hand when it's just about ready to go ripe, and just bring it in, and then wait another week or so before the rest start ripening and get the next one. But for Williams, it's tough to ripen naturally. Apple bananas, on the other hand, ripen real well. It's not a problem. And the general rule is when it gets fat and rounded, you're getting pretty mature. Other than that, it's experience and a lot of guesswork.
So you don't want to see those little ridges on the bananas. You want them nice and round before you harvest them when they're still green, though. Is that correct?
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Does that answer the question from Kona? I guess it does. We have another caller. Could you let us know where you're calling from, and go ahead with the question, please?
Yes, I'm calling from Kona, and I would like to know if chocolate can be grown in Hawaii.
Well, I read in the papers that there's going to be a shortage of chocolate, so you better get your supply of chocolate now. But I believe they started an enterprise of growing cacao here on the Big Island, but for some reason it didn't make it. I don't know. Do you know anything about that? I guess our banana growers
I know a little
here.
bit about it.
Do you know something? Lynn knows something about that, so Lynn, go ahead.
One of the banana farmers in our co-op who recently moved back to Georgia actually was the manager of the cocoa project, and it just wasn't handled very correctly from his point of view. There was a consortium of people. They put together a large entity with secretaries and office buildings, started spending a lot of money before very much was even planted. And as a farmer, we were approached and told about the highs and the lows and the goods and the bads, and mostly the goods in their opinion of growing cacao, which is the plant that produces the chocolate bearing pods. And the first thing that floored me was it was going to cost me $14,000 per acre just to buy the plants from them to get into the business, and that's a lot of money per acre. It costs a lot less than that to start an acre of bananas.
I see.
And so it does grow well here. What the parties lost interest. Hershey's pulled out. AmFac pulled out. Eventually, the large companies that were supporting the endeavor pulled out of it, and it couldn't be supported by the people who were left in it. So everybody just sort of walked away. There's 50 acres of abandoned cacao plants growing out in Kayao.
From the time of planting to the time of harvest, what are we looking at, a year, 5 years?
In cacao?
Yes.
A couple of years.
A couple of years.
But you get more production as you get into the 4th and 5th years. It's small after 2 years.
What if I would talk to the people in the mainland to bring the plants, the processing plants here? Would you people be interested?
I think anybody who's a farmer in Hawaii is interested in any kind of profitable farming. It's like what kind of land does it require? Are we in a wet enough environment? Are we in a too wet environment? There's a lot of things that have to be studied, and I'm sure if everything was lined up correctly, people would be willing to grow it here.
I thought maybe we can give it to the people that lost their jobs in the plantation and sublease the properties back to them and give them a share of the harvest.
It's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm hoping that the apple banana...
I'm sorry to get off the subject, but...
Well, that's okay. I'm hoping the apple banana will be the same way for the former plantation workers. If we can get an export trade going, then the volume is almost endless.
Yes, I'm just thinking of new ways of bringing more revenue and giving people jobs.
It's a good idea.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you for calling from Kona. We have another caller. Could you let us know where you're calling from and go ahead with the question, please?
Yes, hi. I'm calling from Kaumana area.
Okay.
And I grew some Bluefield bananas, a few years back. And the first crop came out, full. And after that, the fruit, the trees kind of got wilty looking, or like maybe somebody told me there's some kind of wilt problem, and the fruits wouldn't mature, and it'll die before as it fruited, the plant would die. And I'm just wondering what was that problem that I had.
Okay. Lynn?
It's kind of back in line.
Lynn, go ahead. What's the problem?
Well, did you see the video on a little while ago that I showed?
Yes, I did.
Well, that very first plant that I showed, which was basically kind of yellow and gold on the edges of the leaves and everything,
right.
Those are the symptoms of the Panama wilt disease. And if you chop the tree down, and look at a cross section while it's fresh, you'll see there's lots of little squares of where the leaf sheets are all stacked together, and you'll see lots and lots of purplish red spots where the feeding channels have suffocated and died in the banana plant. And that is a classic symptom of Panama wilt. So if you see that, that's what got them, and there's nothing you can do about it but just chop them down and try to get a resistant variety, because Bluefields they don't recover. It's a fatal disease. But if it's not Panama wilt, then it's probably just nutritional combined with a fungus disease of the leaves, which isn't fatal. It just gets real severe. So you really do have to determine if it's Panama wilt, and it's kind of hard to do it without seeing it.
Yeah, I think, but with any kind of solution of Clorox and water, they won't do anything to sterilize the soil or anything.
No, that disease can persist in the soil for years and years. You just have to get a resistant variety.
What about if I plant apple bananas there? Would it grow?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah,
So,
that's been done.
So these bananas you see in the river gulches?
Uh-huh.
Are they apple bananas by any chance, or is it? They almost look and taste like them.
They are.
They are.
Yeah.
Oh.
But if you get an apple banana from a farmer or from a nursery or from a plant store, you're going to get a healthier plant, because the gulch bananas almost all have a large nematode population. So I don't advise digging banana plants out of unknown areas, because if you bring the nematodes into your property, you're just adding another problem to your yard. I'm not trying to put a pitch in here for plant stores, but it's really important.
So the apples that you grow on your plantation, is it the tall ones, or you grow the dwarf variety?
Well, it's dwarf variety, but it's a fairly tall plant. The bunch is the first bunch is about 8 feet off the ground, and then every generation goes up about a foot or two.
Lynn, I'm going to have to cut you off.
Okay, thank you very much.
I've run out of. Thank you very much for calling from Kaumana. I'd like to thank Richard Hall, Rusty Perry, and Lynn Richardson for joining us this evening, and thank all of you for watching Focus in Agriculture this past semester. This is our last semester, or last program. I'd like to put the Elmo on again. For those of you who are taking the course, please send in your notes to me, to the College of Agriculture, 200 West Kawili Street, Hilo, Hawaii, and I'll mail them back to you. Make sure you get them in before May 15th, which is next Friday, and the grades go in after on the 18th. So if you send in your notes after the 18th, I'll give you an incomplete, and then you can send your notes in a little later. Again, this is Jack Fujii saying thank you for watching. We hope you'll join us next semester when we'll come back to cooking. This is Jack Fujii saying good evening.